When I saw him looking at her, I felt my chest tighten in a way I hadn't felt in years. That line, that moment, it haunted me more than anything else I had experienced in our 25 years together. I never thought it would come to this, my husband, the man I had shared decades of laughter, tears, and ordinary mornings with, looking at someone else, someone younger. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the first ripple of doubt crept in. I was folding laundry in our sunlit bedroom, the smell of fresh detergent mingling with the faint scent of his aftershave lingering on the pillow. He walked in, whistling softly, a little too cheerfully. "Hey," he said, dropping his briefcase onto the chair with a thud that made the room vibrate. But his eyes, those familiar hazel eyes, didn't meet mine the way they usually did. Instead, they darted toward the phone on my dresser, as if he was trying to remember something urgent. "I'm making dinner in 20 minutes, I said casually, tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear. He nodded absent-mindedly, humming a tune I didn't recognize. That was the first time I noticed it, the subtle shift, a distance I couldn't explain. Our life before this had been ordinary, yes, but rich in its simplicity. Every morning, I'd wake before him, brewing coffee in the kitchen while the sun painted golden stripes across our hardwood floors. He'd shuffle in, tousled hair, sleepy grin, and we'd share a moment that belonged only to us. Our kids were grown now, scattered in their own lives, but we had each other, and that had always felt enough. We'd laugh over burnt toast, tease about mismatched socks, and sometimes just sit together in the living room, listening to the ticking clock, sharing silence that was never uncomfortable. That Tuesday, I tried to shake off the uneasy feeling, convincing myself it was nothing. Perhaps he was stressed at work. Perhaps it was just a fleeting mood. But over the next few weeks, the small cracks widened. He started leaving the house earlier, coming home later. Texts would pop up on his phone that he quickly hid when I entered the room. The music he usually played while cooking disappeared. And when we sat at the dinner table, he no longer met my eyes. It was subtle at first. He'd laugh a little too loudly at someone else's joke in a Zoom meeting, linger a little too long on a comment I didn't hear. Then came the whispered phone calls he quickly ended when I approached. And finally, the casual mention of a coworker's daughter. "She's so full of life, reminds me of someone," he said with a dreamy look I hadn't seen directed at me in years. I told myself I was being paranoid. 25 years of marriage didn't unravel overnight, did it? I tried to fill the silence with normalcy, cooking his favorite meals, suggesting movie nights, laughing at silly jokes, but nothing bridged the sudden distance between us. I felt like a spectator in my own life, watching him slip away, smiling politely as he became someone I didn't recognize. Then, one evening, everything changed. I came home from a routine grocery run, the smell of rain clinging to my coat, the leather of my purse damp and earthy. I unlocked the door and froze. Through the half-open bedroom door, I saw her. Young, vibrant, her laughter spilling into the room in a way that used to belong to me. And he was there, leaning close, listening like she was the only person in the world. I didn't knock. I didn't call out. I just stood there, my heart pounding like a drum, trying to understand if this was a momentary lapse or the truth I had been avoiding. And as I watched him reach for her hand, the man I had promised forever to, I realized, my world as I knew it was shifting. Something in me stirred, not panic, not rage, but clarity. After 25 years, I wasn't about to let my life be dismantled quietly. The words came then, soft but firm, carrying all the years of love, of heartbreak, of patience and understanding. "If you think this is what you want, then maybe you should hear what I have to say first." I remember that night vividly, the rain tapping against the windows like it knew the tension inside. I poured myself a cup of chamomile tea, the steam curling up in front of my face, trying to steady the tremor in my hands. He sat across from me, his eyes avoiding mine, fingers drumming lightly on the edge of the table. There was a pause, long and heavy, before he finally spoke. I think I need something different," he said, his voice low, almost guilty. "Someone younger, someone more alive, I don't know." I blinked. I think the tea slipped from my hand, or maybe it didn't, everything blurred for a second. After 25 years, the man I had shared my life with, raised children with, planned decades of ordinary mornings with, wanted someone else. Just like that, casually, as if years of memories could be replaced with a fleeting desire. I felt the familiar ache of betrayal rise, a hollow pit in my stomach. But I also felt something else, a calm clarity I hadn't expected. My hands steadied, my voice didn't waver, and I realized that in all those years, I had built a life of substance, of depth, and I wasn't about to crumble because he had lost sight of it. I see, I said softly, placing the mug down with deliberate care. And have you thought about what that really means? He shifted in his seat. I don't know. I just feel, he trailed off, searching for words that wouldn't come. I leaned forward, the calm in my voice a stark contrast to the storm in my chest. Do you remember the night we moved into this house? You were so excited, so hopeful. You carried the old mattress up 3 flights of stairs without a word of complaint. Do you remember? He nodded, a flicker of memory passing through his eyes. I remember, too. And I remember the first time you held our daughter, how your eyes lit up, how you whispered to her even when she couldn't understand. I remember the nights we stayed awake with sick children, the arguments we had over silly things, the laughter that followed. I remember us, through all of it. My voice grew steadier. Do you think she, or anyone younger, can give you that? Can she give you 25 years of shared life, of building, of surviving? He swallowed hard, his lips pressed into a thin line. He had no answer, because there wasn't one. Nothing could replace what we had, nothing could replicate the foundation we had laid together. In the days that followed, I watched him fumble with his emotions, trying to justify feelings he barely understood. He lingered on his phone more, stared out the window, and at times, I thought he was going to disappear from our lives entirely. But I didn't react with anger, I reacted with strategy. I knew my words, my presence, and my calm conviction would speak louder than any argument or tearful plea. I began subtly reclaiming our shared space, not with confrontation, but with presence. I cooked meals the way we used to, adding little notes in his lunch, recalling inside jokes only he and I shared. I asked about his work, his day, listening intently, really listening, letting him see the depth of connection that had existed long before any fleeting attraction could intrude. Then came the moment that would test him entirely. One quiet evening, I invited him to sit with me on the porch. The sky was bruised purple with the last light of day, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth. I took his hand in mine, the gesture simple, unassuming, but full of meaning. I want you to understand something, I said, my voice steady. After 25 years, I know what I bring into this marriage. I know the love, patience, and depth I offer. And if you think leaving that behind for someone younger is worth it, then maybe I need to show you something first. He looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time in weeks, I saw the hesitation, the guilt, the realization that perhaps desire was not stronger than history. The first real clue that things were spiraling beyond idle temptation came a few days later. I had returned from the grocery store, the scent of fresh bread and roasted chicken clinging to my coat. I thought he was in the study, as usual, typing away on his laptop. But instead, I found his phone lying on the kitchen counter, buzzing insistently with messages from a name I didn't recognize. I didn't panic immediately. I reminded myself to breathe, to stay calm. Years of experience, raising children, managing a household, navigating life's small betrayals, had taught me that clarity comes before action. Yet as I glanced at the screen, my chest tightened. The messages weren't innocuous, playful, intimate, casual flirtation. Can't wait to see you tonight, one read. Another, you looked amazing today. I put the phone down as quietly as I could, my mind racing but my face calm. He walked into the kitchen a few moments later, smiling in that familiar way that once made my knees weak. Hey, love. How was shopping? Fine, I said softly, keeping my tone light, casual. No trace of the storm inside me leaked out. I smiled, poured myself a cup of tea, and let him think the moment had passed. But inside, a plan was forming. I didn't want confrontation yet, not before I understood what I was dealing with. Over the next week, I started noticing subtle changes. The way he checked his reflection in the mirror before leaving for work. The faint perfume lingering in the air after he returned. Even the way he laughed a little differently, a touch too bright, when I asked about his day. My heart hurt, yes, but I also felt a growing sense of resolve. One evening, he came home later than usual. The house smelled faintly of jasmine, a candle burning softly in the living room. I could see him tense as he entered, and I knew immediately he had been with her. I didn't accuse. I didn't scream. Instead, I offered him a drink. Wine? I asked, keeping my voice calm, even inviting. He nodded, avoiding my gaze. We sat together in silence, the only sound the soft clinking of glasses. I let the tension sit between us, heavy, undeniable, until he finally spoke. I don't know what I'm doing, he admitted, voice trembling. I just feel restless. I nodded slowly, letting him pour out his confusion. I didn't interrupt. I didn't berate him. Instead, I let the weight of his words settle in the room, alongside the quiet intimacy we had shared for so many years. And then, carefully, I spoke. Do you remember when we first bought this house? I asked softly. We were young, barely scraping by, and yet we built a life together. I loved you then, even when you were reckless, even when you made mistakes. And I have loved you every day since. But you need to understand something, love isn't just excitement or attraction. It's history. It's shared dreams, disappointments, mornings when you can't get out of bed, and evenings when you sit together quietly, content. He shifted in his seat, guilt and longing flickering across his face. I continued, my voice deliberate, measured. If you think someone younger can give you what we have, think again. Life isn't just about desire. It's about depth. And you, after 25 years, are standing on a foundation you might not even realize is irreplaceable. For the first time in days, I saw a crack in his armor. The charm, the casual distance, the restless energy, all of it faltered. I let the silence stretch, letting him feel the weight of his own choices. That night, as he slept beside me, I realized something crucial. He had no idea what he was about to lose, but I did. And if he wanted to test the waters with someone else, it would be on my terms. It wasn't long before the truth fully revealed itself, more glaring and undeniable than any suspicion could have prepared me for. One Saturday afternoon, I returned from the market, the sun warming my shoulders, a faint breeze carrying the scent of blooming roses from the garden. I expected him to be in the study, but the front door was unlocked, slightly ajar. My heart sank before I even stepped inside. I moved silently, following the faint sound of laughter, light, carefree, and utterly wrong in my home. And there she was. Young, confident, smiling at him like she owned the room. She had that effortless charm that comes naturally to youth, that magnetic energy I had long since learned to cultivate in other ways, through patience, wisdom, and love. And he was leaning in, captivated, his eyes sparkling with that dangerous mixture of admiration and infatuation that had once been reserved for me. I didn't call out immediately. I didn't confront him with accusations or hysteria. I stood at the edge of the room, silent, letting my eyes drink in the scene. The betrayal hid in waves, the laughter I had known for decades, now for someone else, the touch, the closeness, the way he whispered her name like it was sacred. I felt my chest tighten, my stomach turn, and yet, beneath it all, I felt something else, control. I had waited 25 years to reach this clarity, and I would not lose it to rashness. Finally, I cleared my throat softly, and both of them froze. Her eyes widened, the playful confidence faltering for a fraction of a second. And he turned, shock etched across his face. Did you enjoy my home while I was gone? I asked, calm, measured. My hands were steady, but my heart was a storm inside. Do you feel welcome here? The girl blinked, suddenly aware that she was an intruder, that this woman, his wife of 25 years, was not the type to be intimidated. She opened her mouth, but no words came. He stammered. I held up a hand. No. Not yet. I stepped closer, letting him see the weight of my gaze. Do you realize what this means? Not just for you, but for all of us? For the years we built together? For the life we shared? He swallowed hard, fumbling for words. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to, I repeated softly, almost gently, but with steel beneath the words. Do you think 25 years of marriage, of shared struggles, laughter, tears, can be erased because of a fleeting attraction? Because someone younger crossed your path? He looked away, guilt heavy in his eyes. The girl, sensing her position, excused herself abruptly, murmuring something about errands she had to run, leaving him to face me alone. I could feel the tension pulsing between us, heavy as the humid summer air. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shout. Instead, I let the silence hang, letting him absorb the enormity of his actions. And then I spoke, deliberately, every word weighted with the truth he seemed blind to. You have a choice, I said, softly but unyielding. You can continue chasing this illusion, sacrificing decades of love for a spark that will burn out in weeks. Or you can remember what we built, remember who we are, and start being honest, not just with me, but with yourself. He looked at me, stunned, like he was seeing me for the first time in years. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a surge of power, not over him, not in vengeance, but in self-possession. I realized that betrayal, while devastating, could not define me. I was still here, intact, unwavering, and fully aware of my worth. That night, I let him sit in the quiet of our bedroom while I prepared dinner in silence. The ticking clock, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint aroma of garlic and roasted chicken filled the air. And somewhere deep inside, I knew that the true confrontation was only beginning, but this time, I held the cards. The days after that confrontation were tense, but I approached them with a deliberate calm I hadn't known I possessed before. I didn't let anger dictate my actions, I let clarity do it. Every morning, I moved through the house with purpose, reclaiming the rhythm we had once shared. I made coffee the way he liked it, left little notes in his briefcase reminding him of appointments, even hummed the tunes he used to sing along with. But it wasn't just about routines, it was about showing him what he risked losing, without saying it outright. Subtlety became my ally. I asked him questions about his day, listened intently, never interrupting. I laughed at his jokes, softly, warmly, letting him see the ease and comfort of a relationship built over decades. Every glance, every touch, every shared memory I reminded him of, it was my quiet demonstration of what commitment, consistency, and depth truly meant. One evening, I invited him to our favorite spot in the backyard, the small wooden bench under the old oak tree, the sun dipping below the horizon and painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The air smelled of wet earth, the faint scent of roses lingering from the garden. I sat, letting the stillness embrace us, watching him hesitate before joining me. I've been thinking, I said softly, tracing the edge of the bench with my fingers. You talk about wanting someone younger, someone more alive. But what does that really mean? Do you know what you'd be giving up? He was quiet for a long moment, finally admitting, I don't know anymore. I just feel restless, like I need something new. I nodded slowly, my gaze steady. Restless. That's it, isn't it? Not unhappy, not unloved, just restless. You forget that life isn't about constant excitement. It's about depth, it's about continuity, it's about building a life that can withstand storms. That is what I've given you, what we've built together. His eyes met mine then, a flicker of realization passing across them. The first time in weeks, I saw him truly reflect, not defend, not deny, but absorb the weight of his choices. I didn't demand loyalty, I didn't issue ultimatums. Instead, I offered him clarity. If you want to pursue someone else, fine. But remember this, what I offer isn't something you can replace with a smile or a fleeting connection. After 25 years, I am the sum of shared life, shared struggle, shared love. And if you walk away, you'll walk away from all of it. He looked down, guilt heavy in his eyes, and I realized that confrontation wasn't about proving him wrong, it was about reminding him of reality. I gave him time, space, and truth, letting the weight of his actions settle naturally. Later that week, I overheard him on a phone call, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard. I need to think, he said. I didn't realize. I need to. I can't just throw away, his sentences faltered, broken by reflection and regret. I knew then that the pivot point had arrived. I didn't have to manipulate or force him, the realization came from him, guided by the presence, patience, and integrity I had shown. And in that moment, I understood something crucial: power in relationships doesn't always come from anger or revenge, it comes from knowing your worth, standing firm, and letting truth speak for itself. By the end of that week, he was quieter, more introspective, more present. The casual glances at another woman faded, replaced with thoughtful pauses, small gestures of care that had been absent for months. And for the first time, I sensed that the life we had built, our shared history, our love, was beginning to reclaim its rightful place in his heart. It didn't take long for the ripple of truth to extend beyond the walls of our home. Word travels in ways you can't always predict, and in our small community, people notice when something is off. My friends had sensed the tension before I even realized it fully myself. A casual question over coffee, a concerned glance during a book club meeting, subtle whispers of worry that reached me indirectly. I realized that I had a choice: to retreat quietly, letting the whispers swirl and rumors form, or to face the situation with dignity, allowing the truth to be acknowledged without vindictiveness. I chose the latter. One afternoon, I invited a few close friends over, women I trusted and who had watched our marriage evolve over the years. I didn't speak in anger or accusation. Instead, I told them what had been happening, calmly, factually, and without embellishment. I explained how subtle betrayals had crept into our lives, how temptation had tested the foundation of our marriage, and how, through patience and clarity, the truth had been laid bare. Their reactions were quiet, respectful, and supportive. There were no gasps of shock, no malicious glee. Just acknowledgement of the reality of human relationships, the frailty, the complexity, the challenges we all face. And in that acknowledgement, I felt a sense of liberation. The weight of secrecy, of shame, of betrayal, began to lift. Soon, the knowledge reached other corners of our lives, family gatherings, work circles, even casual neighbors' conversations. And the response was what I had hoped for: not judgment of me, but a clear understanding of accountability. My husband, confronted indirectly by the awareness of others and the natural consequences of his actions, began to experience the moral weight he had been trying to ignore. He received subtle rebukes from colleagues, concerned advice from mutual friends, and quiet disappointment from our adult children, who had sensed his restlessness. I watched, silently, as the facade of casual indulgence cracked under the weight of social awareness and moral consequence. He was forced to reflect, not through confrontation from me, but through the natural unfolding of truth. I made a conscious effort to remain dignified throughout. I did not speak ill of him behind his back. I did not retaliate or seek to embarrass him. I simply allowed the situation to exist openly, acknowledging reality while maintaining the integrity I had always carried. It was a lesson not just for him, but for everyone involved. Actions have consequences, and the depth of human relationships cannot be dismissed lightly. One evening, as we sat together in the living room, the soft hum of the television filling the background, he looked at me differently. No words were spoken at first, only a lingering glance that spoke volumes, an acknowledgement of his own errors, a recognition of the strength it took for me to remain composed, and perhaps a first flicker of genuine remorse. For the first time in weeks, he engaged fully in conversation, listening intently rather than responding defensively. He began to contribute to the household again, taking responsibility for small but meaningful actions, gestures that signaled awareness and effort. It was not immediate reconciliation, nor was it a return to the blissful simplicity of before. But it was the beginning of accountability, the public and private acknowledgement that our life together, and our shared history, mattered more than transient desire. I realized then that the power of truth, patience, and moral integrity can often influence others more profoundly than confrontation or anger ever could. By standing firm, by remaining composed, and by allowing the natural consequences of one's actions to unfold, real change can begin. The weeks that followed were a slow, steady rebuilding, not just of our marriage, but of my own sense of self. I felt lighter, stronger, and more certain than I had in months. The tension that had once filled the rooms of our home gradually eased, replaced by quiet, intentional moments of connection. We began with small gestures, shared breakfasts on the porch, laughing quietly over memories of our children when they were little, watching old family videos on the couch while the sunlight spilled across the floor. He no longer avoided my gaze, and while the spark of infatuation with someone else had not entirely disappeared, it had diminished under the weight of shared life, of history that could not be replicated. I also took time for myself, something I had neglected in the years of catering to a marriage tested by betrayal. I joined a painting class at the local community center, spending afternoons blending colors on canvas, finding joy in the quiet creativity I had long set aside. I began walking in the mornings, the scent of dew on the grass and the crisp chill in the air grounding me in the present. Through it all, I realized the importance of self-worth and self-respect. I did not need to win him back with manipulation, nor did I need to punish him for his indiscretions. The strongest form of healing, I discovered, was rooted in integrity and inner strength. By maintaining calm and dignity, I gave myself the opportunity to heal, to grow, and to remind him silently, gently, what he risked losing. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned a soft amber, he approached me while I tended the garden. He looked hesitant, nervous even, but sincere. I've been thinking, he said slowly. I didn't realize what I was risking. I thought it was just desire, but I see now, it's more. I see what we have. I see you. And I want to try again. I didn't respond immediately. I let the moment stretch, breathing in the scent of roses and soil, feeling the warmth of the fading sun on my shoulders. And then I spoke, softly but firmly, try again, yes, but not because you fear loss. Do it because you understand what love truly is. Because you recognize the life we've built, the depth of commitment, and the respect required to sustain it. He nodded, a flicker of relief and humility in his eyes. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. Trust, once fractured, does not mend instantly, but it was a start. A conscious choice to rebuild, brick by brick, gesture by gesture, word by word. Over time, our relationship transformed. We laughed more freely again, not just at memories, but in the present. We shared meals, conversations, and quiet moments of understanding that reminded us both why we had chosen each other decades ago. I felt gratitude for the storm we had weathered. It had revealed not weakness, but strength, both in him and in me. Most importantly, I discovered that healing is not about erasing pain or pretending betrayal never happened. It is about acknowledging the truth, standing firm in your own worth, and choosing to rebuild life with clarity, patience, and dignity. I had not only survived the possibility of losing him to desire, but I had emerged more grounded, more self-aware, and more empowered than ever before. The moral, I realized, was simple yet profound. A life built on depth, integrity, and shared experience cannot be easily replaced. Desire is fleeting, but understanding, patience, and love endure, and sometimes, it is in the quiet strength of one who refuses to be diminished that true transformation occurs. As I sit here now, years later, watching the sunlight filter through our living room curtains and listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator, I reflect on what happened, not with bitterness, but with quiet understanding. Life, I've learned, is full of tests we don't expect. Sometimes those tests come from outside forces, sometimes from within the very people we love. But the way we respond, the way we choose to honor ourselves, defines the outcome far more than the betrayal itself. I think about the moment I saw him with her, the tension that gripped my chest, the heartbreak that seemed unshakable. I think about the calm I forced myself to embrace, the measured words I chose, the small, intentional acts of presence that reminded him and reminded myself of what truly mattered. And I realize now that the power wasn't in confrontation or revenge. It was in knowing my worth, in standing firm, in refusing to be diminished by someone else's fleeting desire. Our marriage, once tested, emerged stronger, not perfect, not untouched, but grounded in mutual understanding and renewed respect. He learned, perhaps more than I did, the importance of valuing what we have, of choosing love and commitment over convenience and impulse. And I learned that resilience, clarity, and self-respect are not just abstract ideals, they are practical tools for navigating life's most difficult moments. I share this story not to boast, but to reflect, to offer a quiet reminder that betrayal, while painful, can become a catalyst for growth. That in the midst of hurt, we can choose dignity over despair, patience over anger, and truth over illusion. And that sometimes, the most powerful words we can speak are the ones that remind others, and ourselves, of the value of what we've built. So I ask you, sitting there, thinking about your own life and relationships, if faced with a moment like mine, would you have the courage to stand firm? To speak your truth calmly, to protect your worth without losing your dignity? Love, after all, isn't just about passion or desire. It's about depth, commitment, and the quiet strength to weather storms, and sometimes, it's in that quiet strength that the heart finds its truest victory. Would you have done what I did? Tell me in the comments, and if this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power, complexity, and resilience of love. The sun has set now, and the house is still. I sip my tea, breathe in the cool evening air, and feel a sense of peace that comes only from knowing you have faced the storm and emerged intact. The lesson lingers, soft but undeniable: respect yourself, honor your life, and never forget your own worth.